Good afternoon. My name is Elisa Sabatini, and I am with VIA International, the community organization that served on this immersion trip to Sri Lanka. I'm sorry I can't be there with you in person today. I do look forward, anticipating no glitches, to be with you on Skype at the end for questions and answers. I thought I would start to share with you my experience with the Sri Lankan organization. I traveled to Sri Lanka in 1995 and had the delight of meeting the founder of the organization, Sarvodaya, Dr. A.T. Ariyaratne. We were introduced to his work at the village level, and I was very moved to experience the process that they use in the communities. And that process consists of organizing the community in committees. There are children's committees, elder committees, youth, farmer committees, and pertinent to this presentation, the women's committee. From these committees, they select a council, and it is this council that determines the efforts of the community toward its betterment. I believe that my work of 30 years, primarily in the Latin American region, had often been based on activism. And a lot of that activism came from anger. An anger that came through me about issues of poverty, about rights, and about children's issues, where I experienced them as I worked in Latin America. Coming into contact with Sarvodaya, I saw through the eyes of Dr. Ariyaratne a way to do this work with peace, equanimity, and definitely with human dignity. From that time, I began to discover that one of my key interests would be to bridge academia with this type of community knowledge. And that is indeed the activities that VIA International is engaged with in many countries throughout the world. This presentation, from my many, many years of experience at the community level, brought me new insights, particularly in the role of women, and particularly how mindfulness practice informs the role of women in community. I wanted to touch on the subject of human capital, that individual and collective health, skills, capacity, and knowledge of all peoples. If you look particularly at the role of women in community, we see that women often provide the undergirder for community strength, the framework that holds the family and community networks in some kind of harmony. Experiencing what is called the village awakening process of Sarvodaya, you see that it involves the low-income Sri Lankan women in a model of development of their human capital and their empowerment through a particularly female lens. Bridging the human experience, the women's community experience, and to engage with academic student partners provides a unique opportunity for immersion and an expression of the model of empowerment. One of the questions that I wanted to be sure and engage is the question of what is VIA and what is voluntourism. Our intention with voluntourism is to create this rich bridge with community members and a rich opportunity to engage in some kind of service that is defined by the community and empowers the community and the visitors to be involved in something jointly. One of the things that I believe is an opportunity here is to create these kinds of bridging initiatives in such a way that people not only transformatively engaged connection, but also experience some economic benefit. And this is the case in the way that the trip to Sri Lanka was organized, because indeed in the village where we were hosted, the villagers are paid a small stipend to have the visitors in their homes. And I'd like to speak a little more about this unique opportunity with the engagement of women. In this particular case, the women from the Sarvodaya regional office that hosted us remained with us in the community for those several days. And they were there to support us, to also ask any questions and to assuage any fears that came up in the engagement. I think you will see here that there are a number of photos where you will see actions that were present in the community, and most particularly that who worked side by side with our students was a volunteer girls brigade. And it's another way that Sarvodia makes an effort to keep young women as well involved with community activities. Also, I would like to point out in the engagement with the women in the communities, the extraordinary hosting of the mothers. They not only provided us amazing meals, they had flags at our entry point. They offered on the last night of our time with them a community gathering where primarily young women danced and offered us some expression of their rich traditional culture. And then finally, at our farewell ceremony, where all of us were very sad to leave the families we had become so attached to, I noted that it was the women and their children that sat across from us and hosted the gathering of departure. So hopefully this gives you a little snapshot into what is possible, and it's certainly highlighted on this trip the role of women in the communities. So how do women learn and lead differently across cultures? Women in the United States and Europe have opportunities afforded by legal structure, cultural norms, and access that, on the surface, allow for engagement on an equal footing with their male counterparts. However, in the U.S., as we know, women in comparable positions are paid 20% lower than men on the average. Women still retain the primary role in child-rearing and caretaking careers. There is a stress present from playing multiple roles. The more collaborative nature, the cooperative style, and the multiple perspective-taking that is common in a culture of women has a long way to go to affect the primarily linear patriarchal systems that continue to be the norms. In lower-income areas of the world, Latin America, Asia, Africa share this, a woman's role in society is more clearly delineated as the mother and caregiver. Usually less formally educated, these women take leadership in the doing of things. In particular in Sri Lanka, they are organized in their communities, they have strong alliances with their children, and they take most of the household and often community decisions. And they do it often in the background, without making a lot of noise about it. A structure like Sarvodia provides an organizing principle for women and other normally disenfranchised community members to play key roles in the development of the community. I think that this relationship between cultural experience and transformation is particular in the experience with Sarvodia with women. Women experience a deep connection to other women when they bridge culture. A shared expression emerges much quicker than in groups of men. This is only an observation from many years of traveling and experiencing other cultures, but what is true about the arena of voluntourism, which is the intent that we went on this trip, included some volunteer action, is that 78% of voluntourists are women who seem more ready and interested and able to engage with other cultures. Another observation is that visiting women from U.S., European cultures often note the available access opportunity in their own home culture and feel a solidarity with women in more community-based cultures, where access to education and careers may not be present. It's not really a better than scenario, but rather an awareness of the benefit to women to have a clear role of mother, householder in a community. Well, how is this transformational, which was the intention of our journey? I believe it affords the visitors and the visited both to honor and respect the role of the other, a perspective taking that grows a broader world view on both parties. The next sort of area I would like to go into is how we did this. We came together prior to the trip, and we definitely looked at how we were as a community. We, this group of 16 women. We wanted to know how much we know about each other and what we needed to do to support each other as we engaged in this immersion activity. We came up with some protocols about how we would optimally belong to our own community and to engage with the other community. In hindsight, I wished that we had communicated in advance, now that it's so possible via Skype and other methods, with the community members to be able to engage in some of the similar questions. As we arrived at the community, I think there were some surprises for all of us. I was delighted to see the women of the community take us into their homes, engage with us as if we were their children, and teach every single one of us the protocols of their village culture. And I wanted to share a little bit about two particular women. Being the community engaged partner in this, I was partnered in the household with our guide, who was a young Sri Lankan woman. She had completed her university education and had found it very difficult to find work. She became an employee almost 2 years ago with the organization of Sarvodia, specifically for the role of hosting service groups in the communities. So she gets the opportunity to travel all over Sri Lanka, and she delighted our group with her simple English and her ability to engage with all levels of society. In my experience with her in the household, I noted that she had a sadness about what would happen to her in the future, because she felt that she would need at some point to return to her village and take on the role of mother and take on the role of householder, and that those seemed to her incongruous, to be inconsistent with the role of working. So I was taken by my experience of Mangala. The other person that had a profound impact on me was the daughter of A.T. Areratne, a very quiet woman, mild-mannered. She spoke to our group on the last day of the trip. And it turned out, unbeknownst to me, that she was a human rights lawyer. And she spoke about the many issues of human rights, violence, domestic violence, the rights of children, the things that she had worked on with a deep commitment and concern for over 30 years. And yet, she is an unsung person of Sarvodia. She's not the one that's on the dais, and she's not the one that receives the prizes. And yet, here she is doing work, consistent, strong, quiet work in the background, and yet creating a profound difference in the Sri Lankan culture. So for me, Mangala and Saditra were the two people that made the most impactful experience for me in this journey of a couple of weeks in Sri Lanka. As I mentioned, I've been doing this work now for nearly 30 years, and I learned from this experience more about the engagement of women to women than I had on any other occasion. So I hope that I will be able to join you by Skype, and that I will be able to engage some of your questions about our journey. Thank you very much.